Man City won the treble. Welcome back to another video. I'm never going to get bored of saying that. Never, ever going to get bored of saying that, my friends. Look who I've got alongside me as well. Look, me and Ahsan have only chatted for a few minutes before jumping onto this video, because I wanted to say, like, let's save a lot of the chat, Let's save a lot of the chat for the first time, so you guys actually know how we're feeling, because other than we did the bit like, oh, how's your head, that kind of thing, because I know I was drinking last night. So we've done that, and that's it. Firstly, mate, good morning. Man City won the treble.
Morning.
Are you still doing that? Literally, like I've got a lot of priorities, but I'm still waking up going, City won the treble. Like, the first thing my head goes to. Even if my son's crying, I'm still like, City won the treble. Like, it's literally where my head's going. It's wild, isn't it?
I feel like it's beginning to sink in.
Yeah.
The magnitude of the achievement is beginning to sink in. Just all the little clips around the celebration, even the celebrations, the parade and all that stuff, it's clear how much it meant to the players and to the staff, and I don't know, it feels way bigger than I thought it would feel a week ago. And it's not just winning the Champions League. It is the treble. I think, part of having that week between the FA Cup final and the Champions League, I think I was a little bit apprehensive about talking about the treble, but now that it's done, the first thing that kind of I feel is that it's so much better than United's treble. Why? because we beat United in the FA Cup final.
Exactly.
I mean, it's unmatchable.
They keep saying, but we couldn't beat you because you're down there. Technicality, but it doesn't change the fact that it happened. It still happened.
It's irrelevant. Exactly. It's irrelevant. Like, the only thing that matters is that in the FA Cup final, they got slapped by City, or by Gundo, to be fair. City didn't really even have to turn up. Gundo did it by himself. But yeah, like, there's no... I don't think there's a comparison between the two. I've seen a lot of kind of chat around... I don't know, like, I just can't, look, no offense, but that United team were nowhere near as good as this City team, right? And so then it's a question of what is the bigger achievement? Maybe for them, because their team was a bit shit, it's a bigger achievement for them to go and do the treble. But for me, the fact that we beat them in the FA Cup final, that's the full stop there. There can't be any discussion after that. And also, to play Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, and Inter Milan to win the Champions League.
Do you know what the biggest myth is about United? Is that they had this insane run to the final. Didn't they play Juventus and Inter? Like, I think they did. And they finished 7th and 8th that year in Serie A. Like, they did,
Really?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's genuinely true. It's like they were big names, but they weren't big seasons for those sides. And when you really deep what Man City did, like, Dortmund was in our group. They should have won the Bundesliga. Sevilla, Europa League champions in the end. So they are European royalty, whichever way you dress it. They beat. They are better than United. United, in the Europa League. United were there too. And Copenhagen, okay, that's a gimme for Manchester City. Let's be honest. We smashed RB Leipzig, a very good side. We smashed them. We took apart Real Madrid. Like, we embarrassed the European royalty. Bayern Munich and Real, probably the two other best sides in that competition, and we beat them in the end pretty clearly. And then of course Inter Milan with Simone Inzaghi, an absolute master in finals, genuinely like Mourinho-esque record in finals, and they made it difficult, but we still beat them after everything we've gone through. Our Champions League route was hard. Even our FA Cup route, mate, was hard. We beat United, a derby in a final, and as much as we like to mock Man United, they're still finished third in the Premier League, so they're a decent United side by their recent standards.
We had to play Arsenal. Didn't
and
we,
Chelsea. We played out Chelsea. And then we beat the two sides that got promoted. Literally Burnley and Sheffield United. They're now Premier League sides. Like, this idea that we had some gimme run to all these competitions. Also, United played one less tie in the Champions League. They didn't have a round of 16. So all this stuff keeps feeding back into it, man. Like, and more points, more goals. Like, I'm sorry, but they can turn around the idea that their treble's better because they were a shitter. What? We're just better because we're better. Fucking deal with it. And that, to me, is the crux of it, and it is true.
The level of Burton this video is starting is out of control.
But do you know what? We deserve it. We absolutely deserve it, mate. And I've been on cloud nine since Saturday. And are you right though? I didn't think it could hit that hard. Actually, I didn't think it could. But it does. I've got goosebumps. Literally got goosebumps right now thinking about it. And that, to me, is like, it's surreal because That's the only thing. We're going to get onto the other side of it in a bit, because we have reached a peak now. Like this, I mean, literally, this is the pinnacle. I mean, okay, maybe there's
the end of the beginning.
Yeah, maybe it's the clouds above the peak. If you somehow can cloud hop and get a quadruple, but reasonably, we've reached what you'd say was expected of a football team, I would say, which is a crazy thing. So we've got the other side to discuss later. But I want to know firstly, mate. I want to talk about Saturday night still, because obviously I've not chatted to you directly. I need to. How are you feeling on Saturday night, man, when that full-time whistle went?
I mean, I think from Rodri's goal onwards, it's all pretty much a blur. I definitely, there was definitely tears in my eyes when Rodri's goal went in, mainly because I had a moment in the second half, and actually I've watched the game back, and we weren't as bad as I thought we were. For whatever reason, like all the way up until Rodri's goal, I was saying to everybody around me, we could play this game for days and we're not.
I have lost you.
And, you know,
I lost you for a second then. I lost you at 3 days, another 3 days. Oh, then was it then and we scored? Yeah.
Yeah, I felt as though we could have played that game for another 3 days, and we still wouldn't have scored. But then Rodri's goal went in, and then after that, everything was just a massive blur. I was pretty on edge, and then the celebration at the full-time whistle it hit different, man. I keep saying that for me, it's the nearest thing to it is 93-20, because 93-20 was a first.
Yeah.
And that's and obviously you can't top it because it's a last kick of the game goal to beat United. But the point is that it had that same sort of build up and that same idea.
Narrative,
that,
yeah.
Yeah, like this is something that and that was early, you know. I think that had we lost that, I don't think that there would have been a lot of, if we'd have lost on Saturday, I think it would have been quite bad. I think the narratives around it would have been really bad. And I think psychologically for the players, with what happened in Porto and the way that the game had started in Istanbul, I think it would have been bad for the players. But on the contrary, right, and that's something that's been a feature of this season, this team can play badly and win. And more importantly, this team really has learned how to suffer. We've conceded goals. Like, I think about the goal at the Bernabeu, right, and how that can kill you. Or the goal that Salah scores at the Etihad on the break, right? Against those big teams, in those big moments, especially teams that you've had bad experiences against, a goal like that can kill you. But this team's got a different mentality. They're different gravy, mate. So they're just they seem to have learned how to get things done when it's not going well. And I think that actually is what. Let me ask you this: for me, it was much more satisfying for Saturday night to be a bitty game, a really difficult game, one in which we suffered loads, one which you could argue, if it had finished 1-1 and gone to extra time, probably would have been fair, because we didn't really, it wasn't really like a game that we ran away with it. That will live much longer in the memory than if we'd have gone 4-0 up after 25 minutes.
Absolutely agree. 1 billion %. Yeah. And I think the tension in general fed into that relief at the full-time whistle, because they did play a bit of pressure, because Ederson had to claim that cross, because there was that save towards the end. That stuff makes you realise just how close it was. And I think you do need perspective when you win things. And that, to me, it was a toil. It was a battle. And I always think sometimes there's nothing more satisfying than winning a fight, like a fight. Like, if you can stroll and beat teams, it's great, but there's a sense of almost feeling like everyone will go, "Oh yeah, it was easy for City in the end." Like, and you do actually want to see these players. Like, we know they've got elegant, graceful, majestic, once in a lifetime skill, but you want to know they've got that heart and that desire as well. We didn't doubt it, but when you see it in the biggest final, you realise just how much this Manchester City side have grown up, haven't they? Like, they are a collective, an absolute unit together, and like that is not possible without the warriors that come into the side. And I don't think it's a coincidence that you could give the captain's armband to more or less anyone on this team, and they wouldn't really look out of place of it, because now, like, as much as I loved certain players in the team, some have moved on, and going to move on, like Cancelo, for example, and Laporte. And they were often, this is not me speaking out loud, it's pretty much been reported, they were sort of moaners every now and then. And they were known for it, like if they're not in the team, they're not happy. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the people in the team now, everyone in, is pretty much selfless. They're all pretty much there for their partners, and like they're all there for the guys alongside them. They're all there geeing each other up. You've got a real band of brothers, and I think that really helps when you win a game like this. And you have to. I just don't think you can. I don't think you can if you're worried about the guy next to you pointing the finger at you if you make a mistake. That's not going to happen. Diaz doesn't do that. Diaz gets you up. Ake gets you up. Yeah. Rodri gets you up. Even Akanji, he's a smart, very respected fella. And if he was a captain of Switzerland, would anyone question it? No, you wouldn't, would you at all? Like, so all these players, I think it's probably slightly by design. It is by design, in fact. They're all absolute professionals. Like, they're all literally captain-worthy level players.
There's no individualistic players in that team anymore. There's not. Mahrez is the nearest thing we've got to a player who you would consider to be like a kind of an individualistic player. Pretty much everybody else is really a functional team player.
And even then, with the caveat with Mahrez, like we know for a fact that he's dead supportive of his teammates. Like, he's really popular. Like,
massively.
So that's the thing, is like, it's not the Cancelo situation where, like, when Pep made that comment about Ake, like, everyone's going to be happy for him, apart from maybe one person, which we know is about Cancelo. There's no implication at all about with Mahrez that he's anything other than just dead popular. But you're right. Yeah, I know what you're getting at in terms of like.
I just mean individualistic in the way that they play. I think that there's this kind of. Like, it's funny, if you go back to 17-18, right? Like, there was a lot of incredible individuals in that team. But they were individuals who kind of needed to do individual things. Whereas now, and that's how we win games. Whereas now we win games literally as a team. It's literally like a collective thing. It's, they're not the prettiest goals. They're not, you look at most of Haaland's goals, right? We're not talking about really pretty 17-18 swashbuckling. That's not what it is. It's something completely different. I think I've said this a few times on podcasts that Guardiola has matured as a coach at City. And I actually think that he's just arriving in his peak now.
Absolutely agree.
Because I think that a lot of I think if you go back, and I don't know, because I don't know Pep, but I imagine if you ask Pep to take himself back to 17-18, right, and say to him, you're gonna pick the same team, but you're gonna have 4 centre backs at the back, right? Forget about full backs as attackers. No, you're gonna have 4 centre backs. I think he'd have gone, no, that's not my way. That's not how I play. That's not how I view the game. And I think in a way, the way that he views the game and the challenge has slightly changed.
Absolutely.
I think that he's quite proud of the fact that his team can be dragged into a gnarly battle and they'll win it.
I think Manchester's changed him, man. I think Manchester's absolutely changed him. It hasn't, like, there's a lot. I talk about it every now and then as well. Like, I think there's a lot. We talk about players being informed, but managers and coaches can be informed too, because they are human like the rest of us. And I know when I'm not in a great place, I'm more stubborn, or when I'm in certain moods, I'll be more receptive to ideas. And he's a person as well. I know he doesn't seem like it because he's a god to us, but Guardiola will have probably months or weeks or whatever when he's probably a little bit more stubborn or a little bit more open or just. People are like that. People are susceptible to those around him. And Guardiola, to me, he's absolutely a better manager. And I think he's more pragmatic than he ever has been. I think, like, you look at his demeanour, he's more philosophical. You look at him in press conferences, he talks a lot about, I think one of the biggest strengths of this Man City side is that they're not scared of anything. And I think it's because they've been through that pain. I think Pep channels it so beautifully. Like, look, if you lose, we go again tomorrow. It is absolutely fine. Do not be scared of it. Turn up, be your best selves. And if you win, we win. If we don't, that's it. And Pep keeps talking like that very often. And I think in general, if you take away the fear of losing and you challenge it, channel it into a way to just fail better or be better and actually win, which I think Pep's done, I think there's a freedom in that. And I really do believe that this Manchester City side, and under Pep Guardiola now, they're scared of nothing because they know that there was always next season and they are that good and they can win it again. And I think Pep's demeanour he's changed so much and he's got that Manx self-deprecating humour now. There's barely a press conference goes by where he doesn't take the piss out of himself. And I love that.
He's been great.
He's absolutely love it.
Great in the press conference.
Look at him from 6-7 years ago. He had a bit of it, but he's nowhere near the same guy. He's absolutely changed. And I went and checked and he was a little bit more, not arrogance is the word, but definitely a little bit more of like, coolness to him, you know, a little bit more like I'm Pep Guardiola, an air of the special one vibes, you know, in terms of like he was still humble, but he was definitely a little bit more like I'm this still a younger manager, an upstart, not an upstart as such, but definitely very much like, you know. But now he very much realizes he realizes his age. He realizes he's been around for a long time. He realizes that he sort of can't win to an extent as well. He realizes that there are always going to be people online putting him down, and I think he's accepted just exactly the world of football, and I think he's very much more online as well for his work. He's a lot more online.
Mate, he admitted after the Champions League final, finally, right, that he's got his own Twitter.
Did he actually say that? I haven't seen that.
Because what he said was, when I'm scrolling Twitter, you guys are the funniest, right? And that immediately made me went, so you've got a Twitter account on your own phone that you scroll through in your own time, which is just lovely.
He's sat on the loo like the rest of us looking at memes or
looking at the number of times this season he's been like, oh yeah, the Twitter guys, they think they know better than me. And it's like, obviously, but he's reading it.
Do you know what? I think it is, as much as it probably annoys me every now and then, I think it's good for him, because I think he's probably a lot more in touch with the mentality of the fans, or he probably understands the anxiety we feel as a fan base, or I think he understands, he probably sees as well, he probably follows the big aggregators that we do, you know, on his burner account. He probably sees all that stuff, and he probably sees all the rival fan nonsense, and he'll see it all about himself, and eventually I think he'll get why we hate the Champions League a little bit, you know, how he did, and like,
I think it's important for managers to be in tune a little bit with what's going on the terraces.
I agree.
Put it really bluntly, yeah? Because I don't think you can, as much as the managers would love to exist in a vacuum and have their team exist in a vacuum, that's not how football works. No. Football is fundamentally entertainment. They do that for us. Do you know what I mean? Like, so our voices carry because they do that for us. And I think that, you know, not in a, like, in a way, like, of course, Guardiola's going to be like, well, when I make a change and it works, I'm a genius, and when I make a change and it doesn't work, I'm an overthinker. But at the same time, you can't escape the fact that consistent selections, consistent tactics, and you get consistent results, right? And in a big game like what happened on Saturday, because of that consistency, because they've all fought together over this period of time, because nothing is like particularly odd or weird, it means that when our best player has to go off with an injury in the first half and Foden comes in, nobody panics. Yep. Nobody's head really goes. They readjust tactically at halftime. They come out second half. They play completely differently from a tactical point of view, but everything's fine.
Yeah.
Like the kind of the structure of the team is completely solid. And it's just, I just think, like, as much as I loved I've loved all of the seasons under Pep, this has been my favorite one. And it's been my favorite one because we can be, I've all the way through the Guardiola era, my biggest problem was always, we have to be perfect to win games. Do you know what I mean? Like, you think about 2 years of the false nine, and it was literally, we'd have to create 100 chances to score one goal. Yeah. And we couldn't let one go the other side because we needed to create so many chances to score a goal. And it felt like such a tightrope, and it didn't really feel sustainable. This team is completely different. This team can create one chance, score one goal, and then shut up shop and go out. We're out. We're done. And that's
in a Champions League final, or against United with them piling on the last few minutes. Like, that is hard to do. You know, with the momentous occasion of the Champions League final, we still can just shut up shop and get away with it, so to speak. And it's become a tactic, hasn't it? And it's probably the most pragmatic Guardiola side, but it's a beautiful blend. And I think I agree. I've got, in general, one of my favorite things in football is when we win in the second half after changing it. Like, it's just a thing that I love in football. Like, people talk about a perfect game being a perfect 90 minutes. I've never really felt that way. Sometimes I think the most satisfying thing is watching a genius fix something in real time. Like
2-0 down against Spurs and then winning 3-2.
Stuff like that to me is like when Guardiola will get the players together, because I think it's like my brain loves solving a problem. So when you see someone solve a problem in real time, and you go, man, that to me. So if City, I don't know, have a poor first half, I'm got to remember my train of thought here because I'll get waffled away. If City have a poor first half and then we fix it and we win, I sometimes find that way more satisfying than a 4-5-0 spanking, because I've got, football is a game of two halves. It's a cliche, but it's true. Yeah. And it's like watching a chess game, or anything. You're watching a genius, and I find that immensely satisfying, because what you're saying is we can deal with every scenario. And this whole season for me is that analogy spread out. It's that whole thing is totally. And to me, this is what makes it so satisfying. That how many managers would have given up on this season in January or February? How many managers would have? And they would have every right to, because of where we were and we were struggling. And
it's not the managers. It's how do you motivate? So look at Klopp and look at Liverpool.
Yeah.
Right. The players gave up after the first 3 games because they didn't. City won their first 3, and I think they drew 1 and lost 2, or drew 2 and lost 1, whatever it was.
It was
right?
the report.
So 4 games into the season, they've given up. They just throw their hands up and go, "We're not doing this anymore." And Klopp can't arrest that slide until February, March of this year. And that's the difference, I think, between City and a lot of other clubs. And I give some credit to Guardiola, and I give some credit to the culture at the club. That Pep has managed to instill a culture where this is your job, and you have to do it really well. You get paid loads of money. I'm sure he's never going to say it in front of us, but I'm sure he sits in that dressing room and he goes, "You lot get paid 10 times what most of this lot get paid. You have to go and deliver. You can't make mistakes. You're not allowed. You're simply not allowed." Like, it's not, something that for me, I think he's suffered with a lot is individual errors in big moments, in big games in the Champions League over the last 5 or 6 years. And you can tell this year he's got 4 centre-backs playing he's got 5 centre-backs to pick from, maybe even 6, right? And he just moves them around. But the point is, defensively, he's like, none of yous can make a mistake, and they don't. And if one of them makes a mistake in a game, a big mistake, generally they get taken out and somebody gets put in. I think the only player who has made a big mistake and not got taken out of the team is Akanji. But other than that, I think if you make a mistake, you might get taken out for a game or 2. And I think those have to be the standards.
Absolutely.
I think one of the things that I'm beginning to think about is these next 2 years being Pep's last. Now, they might not be, but I'm going to act like these last 2 years are Pep's last 2 years at the club. And that means that, on the one hand, we have to enjoy every moment of this next 2 years, this journey with Pep. And on the other hand, we've got to begin to think about life after Pep. We've got to make sure that the club is positioning itself so that it can exist in a post-Guardiola era and be as successful. Because people think that one of the things that you hear rivals say is, "Oh, we just need to wait for Guardiola to go, because as soon as Guardiola goes, like, City won't be this good." And I'm like, I don't know, the mentality at the club is something else. The quality of players at the club is something else. I think you can continue to build in a post-Guardiola era as long as you make the right decisions in the run-up to him leaving. If you leave a squad that's fit for purpose, that's got the right balance of experience and youth, if you've created a culture that the players carry, not the manager. And that's another thing about this season. I believe that it's the most Pep season in a way, but I also believe that it couldn't have happened without the mentalities in the dressing room. Your Ruben Diaz's, even your Akes and your Akanjis, and the quiet lads who get on with the work that they've got to do consistently. The standards that Gundo sets, not just in training, but in games, in big moments, the standards that he sets. A guy like Erling walking through the door and being so humble and so selfless, and so, you see in every interview that he does, he's like, I'm, my ceiling is somewhere up there and I'm nowhere near that yet. I've got to improve. I've got to get better. I can improve at everything. And that mentality and that culture is absolutely key to the next 2 years, and then moving into if Pep goes in 2 years to make sure that the success continues.
Absolutely,
after he's gone.
Before we go on to watch, quick super chat from Kieran, who said potential 6 trophies next season: 3 domestic, Champions League, Super Cup, World Cup. 36 years of blue and stuff, lump in my throat. Kieran, mate, I hope so, man. I for what it's worth, I've never cared about these extra trophies, but now I want these extra trophies. You know, like the World Club Cup and the Super Cup. I want them. I want them all. I want that, like that Pep season where he was at Barca when he won them all and he had like 7 trophies in 12 months. I want them. I think we can do it as well, by the way. I think we can. But I guess it depends on the next point that we're going to talk about, because I think you're right to say that we probably are likely staring down the end days of Guardiola's era. I hope he stays longer, but I do think it's sensible to presume that it won't last forever, sadly. And it's sensible to start looking ahead, and I think that Guardiola is planning on leaving after 2 years. Hope he doesn't. Hope he does 3, at least does 10. His job now, really, his job now is to sort of prepare, the next group of players, and you're very blessed if you got Guardiola, who, after doing what he was brought to do, let's be honest, when the Champions League and established Man City we are legitimately now, no questions asked. There's nothing anyone can say now about any form of City being a super club, because you've only got to look at every single metric City are just smashing. We've done the big one, we've done something iconic, we've had a domestic quadruple, we've had 100 points, we've had a treble, we've done a 3-point. There's nothing that anyone can label it as anymore now. So Guardiola has reached that level where City are undeniably just this massive, stupidly huge institution. So now it's about, you said it recently on Twitter, this is the end. This the end of the beginning. Now it's about making sure City are just there and stay there, aren't they now? Yeah. And this is where it's going to be interesting, because I do think, unfortunately, we just reached a natural break point, haven't we? We have, you look at that team and you go through it and you go, oof, he might not be there. God, he might be there. He definitely won't be there. He won't be there as well. And by there, I mean by the end of Guardiola's time here. And it's quite a list, isn't it, potentially, Ahsan?
Yeah. Well, it's the next. I think that if you were a rival, if you were on the outside and you were looking at, okay, what's the chink in the armor, right? The chink in the armor is probably going to be the size of the squad, how small it is, right? And the age profile. It's a little bit top heavy. It's not massively problematic, but Mahrez, Laporte, Bernie, Gundo, KDB are all 30,
Walker,
or 30 plus. Walker, who else am I forgetting?
Let's have a look. Let me. Scott Carson. I'm joking.
Obviously. Who have I missed? Have I missed that? No. But so the point is that you've got a lot of players there that you're going to have to make calls on in the next year or 2.
Yeah.
Or 3 years. And I think that some of those players might take that decision out of your hands, because I'm quite I was going into this summer going, all right, even if we lose Bernardo and Gundo, we can probably ride that out. Yeah. With the right business, we can probably work around that. But that was really predicated on the idea that Mahrez isn't going anywhere. If you throw Mahrez in that mix, you've sold your right wing. Do you know what I mean? Bernardo and Mahrez have played. Phil hasn't really played right wing this season at all. Yeah. So basically, you've sold your right wing by if you let both of them go. That's huge. That's not like a small thing. That's a massive thing, because that means that when the season starts, whoever plays there, unless Phil gets put out there, whoever plays there doesn't know how to play it. They haven't really played it.
And they haven't played it for Manchester City. That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah, and Manchester City's specific demands are, well, they're unique. We know that. Look every single winger City ever signed takes a long time. Go on.
Yeah, but I guess it becomes a question about how long do you put off the inevitable for? I think that if you look at, let's use Mahrez as an example, right? I completely understand if Riyad goes, I didn't get a kick against Bayern Munich, didn't get a kick against Real Madrid, didn't get a kick against Inter Milan, didn't get a kick in any of the big games in the run-in this season.
Yeah, Arsenal as well, and
why am I he's perfectly within his rights if Saudi Arabia comes in, for example, and goes, okay, here's a massive contract, we want you to come and represent the league for the next 2 or 3 years. He's perfectly within his rights to go, you know what, I'm done here. Thank you very much. And I'm going out at the top. I've won a treble. you know.
He's 32 years old now, Riyad Mahrez, I think. Is that right? I'm just Googling it. 32 years old, yeah. So he'll be 33 in February next year. And this is what they potentially could offer is generational wealth, you know. Not like retirement wealth. It's like, oh, your kids are going to be all right. Yeah, I mean.
These lads will earn more than they've earned in their entire career in two years.
And I guess when you're in your 30s, you start to think about that, don't you? You're like, oh my God. So it's like someone said, if you move here for a couple of years, you're going to get your whole career in money again, and probably more. You're like, oh God, anyone would do that. Anyone would do that, especially in this situation personally, as you said, where he's probably been. The only thing, the sad thing about it is when you're in a situation like this, is like you are reminded of your own mortality. You know, like he is reminded that actually I'm 32. You know, I am not. I am not immortal anymore. You know, like I am staring down the end, unfortunately, and like
and there's professional pride, right, in the sense that look, Mara is a player who has been key to everything that we've done in the last 5 or 6 years.
Huge seasons.
And now it's clear that there's an evolution going on in the team and he plays less. And it becomes about pride. Like do you stick around hoping that you can fight your way back in? Or do you stick around going, they'll sign another lad this summer who'll play in my position.
Especially with his age as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, then it'll be even harder. And I think similarly, like, I look at Gundo in a kind of similar way. I think that because Gundogan's been so key in so many big moments, we forget there's been moments where he's been taken out of the team. We forget, you know, all the games where it was Rodri and Bernardo and KDB in the center and Mahrez played on the right. And Gundo will be looking at his age and going, well, what do I want to do for the next 2 years? Do I want to stay here where they'll sign more midfield players?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll continue to play a lot. Maybe I'll play less and less. And it'll feel like a bit of like, you know, Vinny went out on the top.
Yeah.
Like when Vinny went out, he banged that goal in and went.
He was right, wasn't he? He absolutely nailed his timing.
I'm out of it. Yeah.
And I think it's hard not to notice that as well, because obviously they all know him. So his timing, the way that he left with the mic drop, like, it was perfect.
Exactly.
And there is something to be said for that, isn't there? As opposed to just withering away on the bench a little bit. And like,
I agree. The only thing that makes me sad a little bit, right, is that modern football, the way it is, it might well be that we'll just get like a statement on the website in 2 weeks going, you know, Gundogan's going. Do you know what I mean? Like, It's a shame that whatever was going to transpire, they couldn't have figured it out before the end of the season.
Yeah, I agree.
So that everybody gets to do that, you know.
What's your take on that, by the way? What's your take on the Gundogan? Because my head has gone back and forth so many times. Like, because I keep going, well, surely he would want that send-off. Or surely he would know by now. Or like, it just I was with David Ornstein last week, actually. There's a bit of a mad name drop there. But I was with David Ornstein and like doing the BBC 5 Live at Mary D's. And I asked him and he was like, no, he genuinely hasn't decided yet. And that was before the Champions League final. And he might just have been wrong in that. But he's pretty good at what he does, David Ornstein. So like if he says that, I sort of trust him in the moment. And there's probably more information since then, because that was a few days ago, of course. But like it's very hard to gauge. But maybe it is as simple as that. Maybe he has been waiting for a better offer. But where's your head with the Gundogan situation?
So, firstly, I think I had this conversation on a podcast recently that, like, you know, when people say, like, oh, he's not made his mind up. It's like, well, you know what? That implies, like, you're telling me that him and his wife haven't had a conversation about where they're going to live from August onwards. Do you know what I mean? That just, to me, that
what else do you do at the dinner table? You know what I mean? Exactly,
that just feels a bit unrealistic to me.
I agree.
So of course they will have talked about it. Now, the story dropped like a few weeks ago that City have made a compromise and they've offered him a 1+1 deal where if he plays a certain amount of games, he'll get the extension for the second year. I'm a bit worried that he hasn't signed anything. To me, that suggests that he's leaning towards leaving, because if it's about a longer contract, a better lifestyle, that sort of stuff, he's probably going to end up going. Having achieved what he's achieved at City, you only stay at City for the love, right? And if you're staying for the love, you probably will have signed up already. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just, to and I could be completely wrong. They could announce tomorrow that he's extended, but the silence to me is interesting.
Do you know what it feels like to me? I absolutely agree with that, and it feels like to me he's been waiting for an offer that hasn't come that suits him yet. And what I mean by that is like Barcelona are doing their classic Barcelona thing of going, well, if you play for 8 months, we'll give you this wage, and then we'll do this and that, and if this guy goes, it feels to me like Barca have been doing their like fixing finance things, and he's just not really had the reassurance. That's how it feels, and that's what my head's telling me, that it's just actually he's sort of holding out to, because he hasn't had the offer that he wants yet from...
I don't think it's... you know what? So I kind of disagree. The reason I disagree is because people keep talking about Gundo's options as if it's just Barcelona or stay at City. Mate, I am absolutely certain that Paris Saint-Germain, Juventus, Barcelona, like Bayern, Dortmund, like all the top clubs in England, like everybody, like the story is Arsenal want him, literally.
Yeah, no, you're right. I'm talking bullshit.
Arsenal are trying to sign him too. I think that he finds himself in a really powerful position where he's a free agent, which means he gets a fat signing on fee wherever he goes. Now you've got the Saudi thing that's come out of nowhere, and the Saudis are going. The story is that they want to give him a big contract. Like,
do you know what? Occam's razor. The answer that requires the fewest presumptions is usually the correct one. Maybe he just genuinely hasn't decided. maybe it's literally like he has an idea and his missus has another idea. And how often his family stuff just go down to that? And maybe he also wanted to wait until the end of the season, just win, get it all out of the way, see what happens. I don't know, man. Like I think I'm at peace. I'm at peace with whatever happens. Like if he goes now, it's like he's captained us to a treble.
Yeah, that's a different thing though. Like I'm happy for anybody to. Yeah. Like if you line those players up, Bernardo, Gundo, Laporte, Mahrez, the long timers. Yeah, I'm all right. They've all given enough to City, and they've all achieved enough that they've earned the right to walk out the front door.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And kind of write their own future, and I'm fine with that. I'm more focused on. I don't think that you should always strengthen from a position of strength, right? Yeah. And it doesn't get any stronger than winning the treble. So whatever the outgoings are, I hope behind the scenes they've got enough of an idea of what these players are going to do to have a plan in place for if they all get the offers they want and they all go. Yeah. I think it's something that I like City's attitude of, we accept that we won't keep anybody against their will, and if you bring the right offer, you can leave. But I think you also have to be cognizant of the fact that your succession planning has to be perfect. You can't go, well, we'll just wait until July 1st, because by July 1st, McAllister's gone, and Bellingham's gone, and that lad's gone, and that lad's gone, and this guy has spoken to this many clubs, and you know what I mean? Like, you have to do your homework. You have to be prepared so that if these players go, you've already got markers down with certain players that you want as replacements. Your succession planning basically has to be spot on.
Indeed, and we'll carry on in a second. Couple of super chats. Let's get to very quickly. Mank2311, just very, very nice. Thank you. He says, my go-to blue. Love the misses and the nipper to bits. City till I die. Thank you so much, man. Very, very sweet of you. Thank you very much. And Sir Alan Petmancini says, love the meltdown from Rags, Spurs, and Liverpool. Well done, City. Oh, by the way, I just saw a great chant on on Twitter here to Rebel. Yes. Like, there's been a few going around, but this is my favourite version yet, and I'm just going to read these lyrics because they're incredible. It's treble, treble, United's a mess. Treble, treble, Jurgen's depressed. Then the next lyric, treble, treble, what do you know? City, 3 in a row. Da, 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 da. That's a fucking tune, that.
That's great.
Treble, treble, United's a mess. Treble, treble, Jurgen's depressed. Treble, treble, what do you know? City, 3 in a row. That is da, 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 da. I love that tune. I hope that cat's on because that reminded me of that. I saw it earlier, and there we go. It's playing out loud there. Oh. But love the meltdown from So Sal Mancini said love the meltdown from them. What have you made of the meltdown line, by the way? Because it has been spectacular. Like there has been heads gone absolutely everywhere, and I know you enjoy this kind of stuff. You enjoy the Schadenfreude. Tell me where you've been, man. Tell me where you've been watching the absolute salt. I mean, that my Twitter timeline is so salty. It could be the ocean. Look, it could be the ocean, man.
So I have this thing where I'm like, when it comes to rival supporters, it's cool. I get it. You know, we're all the same. Like when Liverpool win things,
yeah,
I'll say snide things about them, right? When United win things, I'll say snide things about them. I'm a rival supporter. That's kind of...
It's the game, isn't it?
That's it's part and parcel of the game. I think somehow I take more pleasure in the Nick Harrises and the kind of, you know, the attempts by people in the media to kind of
so it's them as opposed to the fans, like the fan stuff. Yeah,
exactly.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, because and in a way, it's like they set themselves up for a fall, because we now enjoy like all of that stuff that maybe 2 years ago, I think most City fans now, it's like water off a duck's back. Like, you know, state owned, or, you know, blah, 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 like change the game. Nobody can compete. Like, you know, what was it that Rory Smith said? Like, he was like, you know, they never have to sell a player that they don't want to sell. And just like all of this stuff that is just like lies and nonsense. And it doesn't stand up to even a little bit of scrutiny, and it really lacks credibility. All of these people don't realize is that we're their audience. And if we think that they lack credibility, we'll just stop listening to them. And actually now, even I've seen in the comments, even rival supporters are just like, I don't care. Nobody's asked. City are winning everything. You know, like you can go on about 115 charges until you're blue in the face, but it's not stopping the club from buying players and winning things. And most supporters, they don't give a shit about politics or, you know, FFP or who. They just want to watch football, and that's just the way it goes. And Stefan made a really good point, I think, on a podcast that we did yesterday or the day before, where he was like, actually, if you go and look at the engagement that these guys get, they're not even getting massive numbers. Do you know what I mean? You're talking about, like, you know, a fellow with a platform of 200,000 people, and he's getting, like, you know, 40 likes and, you know, 10 retweets, and it's just you're not getting the traction that you want. It's all a bit the air's gone out of the FFP cheating balloon, if you ask me.
Do you reckon?
Because, like, nobody's really that asked anymore. Like, I don't think.
I mean, for the fan bases, I've absolutely seen a massive change. I feel like I've never seen more. Maybe it's because we're so present right now, but I feel like I've never had more abuse thrown my way than I have in the past 2-3 days.
Yeah, but isn't it all from United fans, Liverpool fans, and Arsenal fans?
Yes, literally, entirely.
So, exactly. So, like, they have a problem because before we came along, nobody challenged them, and then we've come along, and now they're not guaranteed their spot at the top anymore, those three clubs, and they don't like it. And they don't know failure, and they don't really know, you know, they're the most entitled supporter bases you could ever come across. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
They're completely irrelevant. And you know, like that. Have you seen that video that Stephen Howson did last night?
Oh my God, mate. Oh my God.
I mean,
the best thing about it is, you know what I love about it? So let's get real here. Let's get real here for a second. He's got a little piece of paper that says Google Dr. Roman Sugar, whatever he's called. And the idea is that you're going to Google it and you're going to find out that Pep was banned for drugs basically years ago, apparently. And this doctor was actually Barcelona's doctor. And the idea, of course, that Pep might have allegedly, even though he was cleared, for what it's worth, he might have been involved in drug use, so therefore that somehow invalidates everything he's done since then. That's what Howson's getting at, because obviously Guardiola doesn't live rent-free in Howson's head. Howson pays for him to be in his head. It's that bad. And then the funny thing about it is when you really dive into the nonsense that is, like, these United fans saying this stuff is, like, I know Howson, sadly. I know him personally, and I know how much he loves certain players. I know how much he loves to be a top red. I know how much he loves Jaap Stam. Jaap Stam was literally banned for Nandrolone abuse as well, and he was never cleared from it. So this guy was a part of Man United's treble winning season. Does that invalidate their treble then at the same time? You know, this guy who was proven to be a drug cheat only a couple of years later.
Mate,
or then what about
Rio Ferdinand did a runner?
Well, look at this. Wait, let me just double check the United team versus Man City. Of course I am. Let me just check the team in the final. 1 second. because I want to make sure before I make this point. Let me have a look. Oh, guess what? United played a drug cheat in their actual team in the final. Fred was banned for a year for drug abuse. So there you go. So you can talk about all this moral high ground, but you support a team literally where a guy's got drug cheats in it. So this whole thing about Guardiola and stuff like that, fucking desperate as anything. Absolute nonsense, man. So that is the point. It's nothing other than just lashing out. It's not based on any moral high ground. It's like, that's it, yeah. It's nonsense, mate.
So the thing that I love the most, right, is that, so on the one level, you've got like the sort of the Haalands and the, you know, they're more like clickbait in a way. It's like, you know, a lot of these YouTube fellas, that's just like everything is like Goldbridge, like everything is outrageous, and they do it for the engagement. It's fine. It's a shtick, you know, and I understand that if you can make a living from it, more power to your elbow, right? I'm not gonna shit on you for that. What I find funny is then you've got a level above. You've got the pseudo-intellectuals in these supporter bases, right? And they talk about their clubs like, you know, these clubs were like, you know, built with you know, they talk about like, you know, we earned our money and we just, you know, we worked for years to get to where we get to.
Little pot out, you know, like begging.
They're completely ignoring. Like if you're a big Scouser, right? And I know a lot of these fellas, right? You're a massive Red. You know the history of your club, Shantley, blah 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 blah. Then you also know who the Moores family are, and you know where that dough came from, and you know that you're
enlighten me. Go on, I don't know who are the Moores family.
Just go and Google the Moores family and the Pools, right? Remember the old days before the lottery, the Pools, right? There you go. That's where their money came from, right? So they were literal lottery winners, right? You look at Man United and you look at the Premier League and you look at how the kind of Premier League came into being and what it was about. Very, very, very clear. This idea that we earned our money is absolute fucking nonsense, right? The top division of English football forever has been filled with greedy owners, right? Who are self-interested.
Always.
Simple. Always been exactly the same. They ain't nothing different now than there was really 30 years ago. The only difference is that now there's somebody richer than you. And that's basically what you don't like. And so for me, those three clubs, Arsenal, United, Liverpool, the supporters of those clubs are the thickest, most irrelevant bunch of clowns that I've ever. Because look, I'm a grown-up. I know what City are. So I understand the way the club is run, where the money comes from, how they spend it, what they spend it on, right? I acknowledge and I accept all of that. I'd never deny it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's no point in pretending to be something that you're not.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean about the Scouse and the Arsenal and the Rags. They're all pretending to be something. They're all like plucky little underdogs. We made our money the right way, and then
that is nonsense, mate.
You didn't even make the money. Look at your owners, man. You're owned by the Glazers. What are you talking about? You're owned by FSG. What are you talking about? You're owned by the Cronkies. What are you talking about, lads? These fellas have got more money.
Billionaire's better than your billionaire.
Exactly. Like these fellas have got more money than you'll ever see in your whole life. If FSG wanted to, they could have rocked up this summer and gone, we'll do Jude Bellingham, we'll do Mbappe, and we'll compete.
I love the idea, Ahsan. The idea is that if United won the treble under the Glazers, that's somehow better for football. Is it? My God, how tapped do you have to be to somehow justify that in your head? Like the FSG and all that, they're Puritans. They would have the Super Bowl at half-time if they could every single week, mate. They would franchise our league off to the world somewhere else. There wouldn't be a single game played in Liverpool if they could get them all in New York. And we know that's true. That's the thing, this idea that they're somehow sounder, somehow more fairer. No, we know why they hate us, and we know, and like, look, I'm not naive, mate. I'm intelligent. You're intelligent bloke. I'm old enough to understand how these things happen. But I'm also intelligent enough to see this, where football's going and where it's gone. What they were crying for is a bygone era, basically. They want the era where they were the... Yeah. Look, United were relatively lucky, relatively smart to float PLC at the start of the Premier League. Well done to them. But this idea, as a result, that no one should ever be able to catch up is nonsense, and it's always been nonsense.
Look, the whole idea, the whole principle, right, of financial fair play and City cheated Well, the rules didn't exist before, and they
Yeah.
didn't exist because those clubs, through
They
the
didn't
advent of the
want them to
Premier League,
exist.
they didn't need them to exist because
Yeah.
they were so rich and nobody could compete with them that they just buy who they want. Man United basically rode roughshod over the league for 2 decades, right? Whenever they wanted a player, they'd just turn up and go, "I want that player," and the selling club would have to sell. They'd end up selling because the players would go on strike. United didn't give a shit. Do you know what I mean?
And it'd be a transfer
United
record
didn't
fee
care.
as well, let's be honest,
Yeah,
usually.
they break transfer records left, right, and center. It's not a credible. None of these people have remotely credible arguments, and I think that one of the things that I think it was quite so. There's a lot of reasons why Sheikh Mansour went to the Champions League final on Saturday, but I can't help but think that one of them, genuinely, just a bit political. It's like, you look at that box that they were all sat in: Soriano, Khaldoon, Sheikh Mansour, Infantino, the fella who runs UEFA. Like, these are the power brokers of world football, right? And City are arguably the most successful club in England over the last decade, one of the most successful clubs in Europe over the last decade. And that sort of as much as in England, they try and delegitimize what City are, and they do it, it only really happens in England. If you go and look at European media, or you go and talk to loads of Inter Milan fans on Saturday night, funnily enough, not one of them called me a cheat. Not one of them called City cheats. Not one of them said, "Oh yeah, you broke these rules," and not one of them said that.
And we know why, don't we, Ahsan? We know why, simply because the people writing these stories, the United fans, the Liverpool fans, the Arsenal fans, or they've got these people in their ear. It's as simple as that. They're just they are playing to their audience, which is these legacy clubs or whatever, these clubs that were there previously. And it's always just been about that. And you're right, this idea, it's funny because we often forget sometimes, and I do it, I'm guilty as anyone, that Twitter is not real life. It isn't real life, Twitter is basically where us gobby-shites go to argue everyone. And it is, but most people, 99.9% of football fans do not do that. They just see a Manchester City side that is brilliant, that is wonderful, and they want to watch that, and they are interested in that. And that ultimately is the crux of it all. City are as good as they are right now because they are as good as they are. And it really is as simple as that. And they're going to be as big as they are because they're brilliant, not because of anything else. And that is why City are going to go around the world. Not going to go around the world because of money. Going to go around the world because they've been brilliantly managed. Yeah. And that is the crux of it.
Social media is basically an echo chamber for most people.
Exactly.
And so what happens is you get this amplification, for example, of 115 charges, right? So it gets amplified and amplified and amplified to a point where they convince themselves.
It's all they hear. It's all they hear.
Yeah, but this is the thing that I find quite incredible, right? That, like, grown-ups, intelligent men, professional men, guys who say that they understand football and been going home and away for 40 years and they understand the politics and the business of it, they'll say things like, "You wait, in 18 months, City aren't going to exist." And all those titles.
It's mad, isn't it? Because it's like it strips their brain.
I'm just sat there going, do you understand? Like, you can't. What's the phrase? Like, you can't fight against gravity, right? Gravity exists.
Yeah.
And you can't fight. There's nothing you can do about gravity, right? Death and taxes. Nothing you can do about death and taxes. In exactly the same way, right? Money talks. Whether you like it or not, the richest, the most powerful people in the world, they get what they want generally. Yeah. Of course, Sheikh Mansour's got more dough than FSG and Kroenke and blah 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 blah. In the end, Mansour will get what he wants. Yeah. His football club will be taken seriously. They'll win things. Nobody's clipping his wings. It's physically not possible to clip his wings. Literally, Saudi Arabia bought Newcastle, right? And they went and lobbied the prime minister to buy Newcastle. Man City, the UAE, did a deal with Khaldoon. Like, Khaldoon did a deal with the government to invest 10 billion in Britain over the next 3 years, right?
Are you telling me they're going to kick him out of the Premier League?
Yeah. How do you think that's going to work, right? How do you think that's going to work, lads? Do you really think that what's going to happen is the Premier League going to go, "We're stripping you of all those titles, we're sending you to the second division, and you're done"? Come on. You won't even get close to that. It will not even get close to that. And that's before you get into like what City have been accused of, and actually like how do you prove that? You're talking about fraud, mate. You're literally talking about prison sentences for board members if that comes to pass. Come on, like the realistic fellas are the fellas that are going, you know what? Now what's going to happen? Worst case scenario, City going to get a slap on the wrist, get told naughty boys, and everybody's going to move on and forget about it. And again, like the contrast between England and mainland Europe, Juventus, man, Juve just love to break the rules and love to break the law and love to cheat in whichever way they possibly can. And they keep coming back. And they're considered one of the best top clubs in Europe.
It's funny, isn't it? It's funny actually how like these have that reputation, but they're
mate. And if you read what happens in the media in Italy, right? There's a lot of sympathy for the Juventus players. There's loads of sympathy for the Juventus coach. Everybody's going, "Oh, this is outrageous! Like, you know, it needs to be the authorities. Like, they're being really hard and they're not being fair, and it's all a bit like they're trying to stick up for the club." You don't get that over it. Like you got too much client journalism. You got too many people that are just writing for the
the thing
rivals.
Is they can't fight time either.
Today.
Yeah, no, they can't fight time either because look, Ahsan, you walk around and all I see these days is City shirts everywhere, and it's funny because those City shirts, once again, they're not there because of money. They're there because Erling Haaland's good at football, De Bruyne's good at football, you know, and all this kind of stuff. And like, ultimately, this client journalism, their next bunch of clients, they're gonna have to adapt or die because it's gonna be Manchester City fans, and that's how it's going. And you only got to look at the parade. And I've been to all these parades, and that was different. That was twice, 2-3 times as long, 3 or 4 times the size. It was absolutely immense, and that is there's going to be a lot of young people there who see that, who want to be part of that as well. And like this club is changing, and to me, this is I think this is the end where we wanted to be. I think finally this project is not complete as such, but
absolutely,
we're there now, aren't we? Unequivocally there.
So I think they will have learned something from signing Haaland, and that is the impact that a single player can have on the entire atmosphere.
Changed everything. I've never seen the Etihad like it is. I know the amount of new faces. I know I speak to a lot of people at City. My dad's a steward. Even he notices it. It's changed. And we can talk about tourists all you want, but hey, that's part of growing. We have to accept it. I don't mind, man. People want to come and witness special stuff. I want to go and see special things. You know, I don't go to Rome to have a look at the shops. I go to see the Colosseum, and people come to Manchester to see Erling Haaland. It makes an awful lot of sense. I'm not going to begrudge them that, you know. And it's
changed. The point is that what I'm talking about is the actual atmosphere.
Oh, yeah.
Guardiola has noticed this season that the atmosphere is different. Yeah. It's special. It's changed. That's the Haaland effect. And I think that
there's a fervour, isn't there? There's a fervour, like an attention and excitement. It's like
spending 100 on Grealish, spending 100 on Grealish, getting Haaland a year later. We're stepping into our
Galacticos, phase. Yeah.
No, we're stepping into our.
We've never had it before. Phase. Like we talk. The thing is, we can say this now with benefit of hindsight, and we all wanted to pretend it wasn't the case, but sadly, it's true. Like people like Silva and Aguero, they were never superstars. They were there because for whatever reason, the end of the world didn't respect them that way. They just didn't. Like I know that because they didn't have that the heat that the people like Haaland brought to the club. We know because we've seen it now. Like you wouldn't see Aguero run down the touchline and like literally everyone stop what they're doing and look at him. You know, like Haaland is like he is treating the way that Messi and Ronaldo are treated. He is like he like it's funny because everyone, Phil Foden can walk off the bus. You know, Gundogan can walk off the bus. De Bruyne can walk off the bus, and they're like yay. Haaland walks off the bus. It's like it's crazy. Yeah. It's like Beatlemania stuff. It's absolute euphoria, and that does change everything because people are attracted to that. They are naturally attracted to is a charisma, and I think because of that as well, because of that by proxy, his partnerships with people like Grealish and Foden and De Bruyne in particular. I think De Bruyne's status has gone up a little bit more as well. I think he's seen as more of a superstar now, and it just like it seeps into everything around the club, doesn't it? Like everything about City seems like it. And like, you go to the Etihad now, by the way, and I was at the Arsenal game, and I looked around and gone, oh my god, what's happened? It's just celebrities everywhere, like the cast of Ted Lasso and this and that. And it's like City have become Bernabeu. It's become the new camp. It's become what Old Trafford used to be, you know. Julia Roberts will be there soon. You know it will be.
The biggest club in England, Man City, the biggest club in England, right?
Yeah.
It's something that people are just going to have to accept.
It's true.
Bigness is decided by consistent success. That's how you decide.
But you know what? It's also decided by the public, and the public have spoken. You know, you got to look at the interest in Manchester City, you know, and like it's absolutely rocketed. Go on.
I imagine, right? So number one, Jude Bellingham must be one thick boy. Like loads of people are telling me, like, you know, Jude Bellingham is dead smart. Bellingham should be looking at those celebrations after that treble and looking at Haaland, looking at Grealish, and going, I'll never be that in Real Madrid. I will never. I could play there for 15 years, but I have one bad game, they'll get the white hankies out.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a mind-bogglingly poor decision for
mental, isn't it?
Real Madrid. And it's not to say that he won't win some La Ligas and he won't win some Champions Leagues, but that's not what I'm talking about. Like the kind of the cultural relevance of the Premier League, City, these players, this generation, Guardiola, everything that's happening it's crazy, man. It's really, really, really I could never have imagined at the start of this season that it'd end like this. Could never have imagined it that it'd end with a treble, beating United in the final, like just the manner in which we've managed to navigate through the whole season, because now legitimately anybody who goes out on top. Nobody's gone out with a whimper. Yeah. And in terms
the
of
power of that, by the way, the power of that, like, if you're a footballer not looking, you have to be fit. You're right, because they leave as superstars. They leave incredibly well paid, incredibly successful.
The images of Haaland and Grealish shirtless on the top of the bus,
gods,
with all of those trophies and supporters everywhere. If you're a footballer,
you can retire tomorrow and you've done it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. If you're a footballer this summer, you'd be mad to not be ringing your agent going, I want to go to Man City. I want to go to Man City. That's where I want to play. Why wouldn't you, like, name another club in England that you'd want to go and play for right now? There literally, I don't see it. And I know, like, you know, I think Stefan said to me recently, and it's fair enough.
Yeah.
He's like, well, you know, Jude Bellingham rejected us. And I was like, of course, like, there will be players that will go, nah, I don't want to play for Man City. Fine, see you later. Off you go. Next. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's always more. But the point is that in terms of where we are, we'll more or less will have the pick of the bunch. Yeah. And we just have to get it right. We have to get that. I think Haaland is the beginning. Haaland and Grealish are the beginning. But I think that over the next 12 months, they need 2 or 3 more. Phil Foden's going to, I think, step into the limelight next season as well.
Central.
And he's going to elevate himself to that place. You need 2 or 3 more, and you're laughing.
It's going to be interesting next season, because it's realistic that, you know, Gundogan, Bernardo, I think there's a lot. I think there is a lot in this Saudi Arabia Mara stuff. It seems far too legit to not be taken seriously. So I think there's a very reason why this Jesse could be gone. Laporte, Cancelo. There's 5 players from an already relatively small squad. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a big squad at all, and you got to look around. And think,
João Cancelo is not a Man City player.
Oh, I know, but I'm talking about the start of the season. It was already a small squad, you know, and like he was part of the farm for the season. And like, I guess what I mean with Cancelo is like, I don't think we could have probably survived all the injuries for the whole length of the squad without him at some point. You know, like he did actually. Like, I think you can't go into the season with a squad as small as it is right now. That's even without the idea of senior players going. So, like, he's another number that won't be there. You know, that should have been there. He wasn't there, and we did well without him. But he's a number that should have been there in terms of pure logistics. You know, and then you look at, like, you know, what we have to bring in is KDB. I don't know how long is he out for. You know, he could be out until October. You know, we don't even know. You know, he could be out for a while, and then he could not be fully fit until December. And that's a guess, but he's injured. You know,
that's a brutal injury. He basically said it snapped. I think after the game, right? So a snapped hamstring is, at any age, it's a difficult injury in terms of recovery.
Yeah.
At the age that he's at, it's, you know, they've definitely got to be planning for at least the first month or 2 of the season without KDB, and even after that, how does he come back? What level does he come back at?
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
does he still have the athleticism to get around the pitch, or do you have to begin to use him slightly differently? There's a lot of. It's a huge summer for. It's been a huge season. They've got everything. They've got all the trophies, and now it's a huge summer.
Have you ever seen anything like this, mate? This to me is the most crazy season I've probably had. Like it's been wild. Like the length of it, the stories. Like pre-World Cup doesn't feel like the same season anymore. The second half totally different. I'm exhausted. How are you feeling? Like do you feel that way? Like
football fatigue. I definitely had football fatigue.
Yeah.
I think that I'm a little bit like. I'm interested in what they do this summer, and I think that that'll probably keep me engaged. Is if players start leaving, because then it's that natural excitement that is generated from new players coming in. But outside of that, I'm knackered, man.
Yeah, same.
I could definitely do with, just like forgetting about football for a month. It would be lovely, but that's not going to happen either.
Because we just won a treble, mate. We just won a treble.
Exactly.
Yeah, incredible. We're going to enjoy it. Ahsan, we could chat literally forever. I think we genuinely could. But we've all got stuff to do and crack on. Thank you so much, guys. I have been posting intermittently links to go check out 9320 Pod in the chat. It's the pinned comment. Go and do it. It's everything you've heard from Ahsan times a billion, because that's what 9320 is all about. It's wonderful over there. Some of the biggest Berts you'll ever hear put in all into audio, and it's wonderful stuff. Go and check it out, guys. You would be a fool to miss it. I enjoyed that so much, man, and I can't believe that we're sat here having this conversation. I want to go back to and check our video at the start of the season, because I'm pretty certain.
Where's my? I'm gonna have a treble cake, and I'm gonna put that
what?
3 candle on the top of it.
Have you got 3 candles? Is it for that reason?
No,
about to say like that's incredible. Yeah. Just got it round just in case.
That was left over, and I was like, I'm gonna buy a cake and have it be the treble cake and put the
perfect.
Put the 3 candle on top.
Mate, love you to bits. Thank you so much for coming on, and guys, just go and do that. Once again, I'm going to say it. I'm going to start every single video throughout the season. Just going to say Manchester City won the treble. I'm just going to do it for next year. It's going to be saying it forever, and I'll never let anyone forget it, because it's absolutely wonderful. Blues, we're living the dream. Catch you all very soon. Check out 9320 Pod. Ahsan's been a superstar. See you all very soon.
Nice one, lads.
Bye-bye.